Okay, so this is a quick video answering a question to balance out. I did a video on how do you start self-publishing with like no money when on very tight budget. So the question was, well, how do you do it if you have some budget, if you have a full-time job, if this is something that you're really committed to and you're willing to make an investment? The question that I got was, what's a reasonable investment? And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give you a dollar amount here, because I think that it depends so much on your genre, your subgenre, kind of what your long-term plan is. So in a couple of videos, I've planned out like a 12-month plan. So how much I'm going to suggest that you spend on a book one really depends on when book two is coming out and when book three is coming out. Are they standalones? Is it a series? Are you going to want to get a book club on book one when you have 5 books out? How long until 5 books out? Like, I have like 100 questions, so it's really specific to each person. But I will say this. For somebody who does their own covers, people don't spend enough money on covers. Like, for 2 reasons. One, if you spend like $150 or $200 on an okay cover, you are going to be so resistant, so absolutely resistant to replacing it with another like $200 or $300 cover. I don't know that you ever recoup like really like spending $1,000 until you're like absolutely sure that this cover artist nails your genre. And like, you know, like, I don't know, I don't want to give a dollar figure there, because I do my own covers, and so I don't know exactly the dollar amount, but I do know that you should be getting covers if you aren't doing them yourself, and if you're doing them yourself. Okay, 2 things. 1, if you're doing your covers yourself, you must be as hard on yourself as you would be on a hired cover artist. Like, this is absolutely crucial. You must be cruel to yourself. You must be a demanding client. You must be like, reject the first 5 drafts. The only cover that I have up for sale anywhere that is the same cover as the very first version I made is Prime Minister. That was a fluke. That was an absolute fluke that I nailed it on the first try. In general, I don't nail anything on the first try. I often make truly terrible covers. I have made some right here on this YouTube channel. You must keep trying. I recover my covers all the time to try different market trends. I don't know that you should do that necessarily. Like, if you, like, ideally, you take my other advice and you figure out what you're going to write and where it sits on the market before you actually write it. That would be great. And then it doesn't matter quite so much. But what you really want to do is you want to see who's doing the top cover designs and get them to do your cover. Even if it means waiting a couple months to release, that's my number 1 tip, right? Spend the money on the hottest cover designer, because the hottest cover designer is hot because those books have resonated, those covers have resonated with the market, and then other people want them to do their covers, and then those books also resonate with the market, and then it becomes this like zeitgeist response, particularly on Amazon, but also on Apple, where the market recognizes those covers, and so those covers start to mean this is a relevant to now modern book. Yes, it's more of the same. Right. So it's exactly the same idea as like when you write book 1 in a series, you want, if you do the metadata connection thing, I feel like it's also the same in a tight subgenre. And you can see it when people try to do a book in a tight subgenre with a cover that doesn't match what everyone else is doing. It just doesn't go anywhere unless they happen to and now people might throw people's names at me, like Penny Reed or someone like that, who really, they have their very own vibe, but their strengths do not come from their covers. Their strengths come from a whole bunch of other places, and then the covers become a part of their brand, and it's a completely different thing. And if that's your plan, if that's something you're really committed to, like, I really want to have a different type of cover, I really want to like establish my own corner of the market, you do you, but it's a different path, and it's a little bit harder. So the first place where I would suggest you spend money is your covers. The second place where I would suggest you spend some money is editing. And here's the thing, is a lot of indies, like most indies. When they say, my editor, what they really mean is somebody who took what is essentially a done book and they did like a line edit on it, or even like just a copy edit, or sometimes a proofread. And all of those things are editing stages, but they're not the same thing as a developmental edit, or a manuscript assessment, or yeah, those are the two ways that I would talk about what I'm talking about. Or like, it could be like a really in-depth line edit, but here's the thing, right? Is that I think that a lot of people, including myself, we publish books that they're good, they're fine, they're great, they're fine. See how I threw fine in there twice? And they don't pow necessarily because we overwork them in the wrong direction. So they lose some of that, like the vibrancy of like the authentic story that we're super excited to tell. And then we don't polish them enough. So we overwork them, but we don't polish them. And understanding the difference between overworking something and truly polishing it. So like examples of things that my dev editor has gotten me to do is like combine two characters. There's two characters that are both kind of weakly doing the same thing, but you push them together and make them one character, and then that character does it really strongly and it's more memorable on the page. Another thing that my dev editor notices is when I like start a thread in a book and then it peters out and it doesn't get resolved. Readers hate that. So you really want, and you want somebody to read your book with an eye for that. And then you have to be prepared to do the work to change it based on their suggestions. I'm currently doing revisions right now on Kincaid's of Pine Harbor Book 1, Reckless at Heart, and it's been through a bunch of these kinds of like really substantive revisions. It'll be a very different book when I finally publish it than when I first drafted the first kind of 30,000 words of it. So the problem is that most of us, when we first finish writing our very first book, we're really attached to it being exactly how it is. And also, if you like that kind of like heavy revision, that really kind of substantive developmental edits, if the person you hire doesn't really love your book, their advice is not worth the email that they send it to you, and it's definitely not worth the like $1,000 that you pay them for it. So what I would really recommend is like finding the right editing partner is a little bit like dating. And it really, what you want to do is like pay somebody first for like first 3 chapter manuscript assessment. If they vibe on the same parts of the first 3 chapters that you love, great. You know, have them do a manuscript assessment of the whole book. If the manuscript assessment, which shouldn't cost you as much as a complete developmental edit, again, I don't want to say, it really depends on the length of your book. Most editors charge like a per word rate. I've used multiple editors for this kind of service. I can recommend them, but I have to do it kind of like in live time because I don't know when you're going to watch this video. So feel free to like, you can message me privately and ask for editor recommendations and I can pass them on. And if I don't write in the same genre as you, then ask somebody else. Like, don't cold hire an editor. Get an editor through recommendations, and get recommendations before you hire an editor. So start the editorial relationship in stages. Date them. Pay, like, I definitely think most people can spend, if you've got some money to spend, you can spend it on a partial manuscript assessment, which is, that's, not a bad investment for anybody actually, because like a partial probably shouldn't cost you more than like $100 or $200. So that's a reasonable investment in the start of your career. Then the third place where, if you've got some money, what you want to do is at some point you want to start investing in cost per click advertising, CPC advertising. Notice I don't say Facebook ads. Notice I don't say AMS ads. I don't say Google AdWords. It is, yes, all of those things. Some of those things, it really kind of depends on you, what your ad copy strength is, which you'll probably have to develop because you might not naturally have it. But at some point, like any cost per click advertising campaign is going to start at a very low amount, like $1 a day testing, or $3 a day, or $5 a day at the most. $5 a day at the most. So if you have $25 to spend on that would give you a 5-day campaign, but then you've spent your money and then you don't have any money to invest in like what you learned from that campaign, right? So really, like, I think if I was going to spend a month learning Facebook ads, I would want about $500 to play with. You could do it with less, but that's kind of, if I'm being honest about how much money things cost, that's what I think that you should probably spend. I think it's better to just spend that money yourself. Spend some time looking at the Facebook ads library. So if you don't know about this, Google it, Facebook ads library. I'll try and put like a little picture of it, what it looks like here. And you can type in anybody's name. You can type in my name and it'll show you the 2 ads that I'm currently running on Facebook. And those ads will give you real-time examples of what people in your genre are doing for ad copy. Observational data is worth a lot. So that's a good thing to spend money on too. So covers, editing, and ads. And then I don't know what I'd spend money on after that. I mean, I do think that it's probably not a bad thing to spend some money, particularly if you're a debut author, on a PR company to help you with a new release blitz. But you can also do that yourself by building your own blogger list. But like a PR company that charges you like somewhere between $50 and $100 to do a new release blitz, particularly one that has review options attached to it, sure, I would spend that. So if I had, let's say I had $1,000, I'm going to use some rough numbers here. If I had $1,000 to invest in a book launch, I would spend I would find a good dev editor who would do a $200 manuscript assessment on the first, whatever they would do for $200. And you can do that. You can send them an email and say, I have $200 for developmental edits. Can you, what can you give me for that? And it might be the first 3 chapters. It might be the first 50 pages. I don't know. It might be more than that. They might have like a gap in their schedule and they're willing to do a quick single read and then give you some, a short developmental edit, maybe. So $200 on developmental edits, up to $300 on a cover, maybe a little bit more depending on your genre. A lot more if it's fantasy. You're gonna have to spend more if you need like custom art, and then I guess I said $100 for a PR company, so somewhere between $300 and $500 for Facebook ads, perhaps. But I might hold those off until the release of book 2. So what I might do is like say $600 on the release of book 1. Oh, because you also have to have some line edits in there. But I feel like that's not extra money. I feel like line edits and proofreading, you're gonna have to find somebody to do that at a reasonable cost for every single book. So that's not the same as extra money. So let's say $600 extra money on the release of book 1, and then on the release of book 2, you don't need the PR company to do the release blitz, but you will spend some more money on Facebook ads, and those Facebook ads might be on book 1 just as much as they are on book 2, because once a book has been out for a while, then you have more words that you can pull from the reviews. Facebook ads, if you go and look at your reviews either on Goodreads or on Facebook, Amazon. I like Amazon because it pops out really like repeated use words, and if you look at those are words that you can try using in your ad copy, because those are what readers are saying about your book. So when people land on that landing page on the Amazon.com page, that'll confirm what you've just promised in the ad. There, that's not a bad tip to leave on. So covers, editing, and cost per click ads. And then for book 3 or book 4, you want to budget also in the cost of a book bub on book 1. And then you're going to do it all over again in another series. Series 2.0, that video is coming tomorrow.